Hello. Um, this is called Nebuchadnezzar's second nightmare. To prepare for this video, you might want to watch my other video from A Voice Crying in the Wilderness, Nebuchadnezzar's first nightmare. So this is his second one. This video follows onto the story of King of Babylon and first dream of the king. King Nebuchadnezzar was in his palace resting, and he had another nightmare similar to the one he had before. It frightened him, and the vision in his head troubled him. He did not know what the dream or nightmare meant, so he made a decree that all the wise men of Babylon had to come in to him to tell him the interpretation of the dream. The magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers came into him. The king told them his dream, but not one could figure out the dreams. The magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers all failed the test. Then Daniel came in at last. The king knew that Daniel could interpret dreams because he had previously interpreted his first nightmare. The king said, "I know that the spirit of the holy God is within you, and no secret troubles you. And so you tell me the vision of my dream." "Here is my nightmare, O Daniel. There was a tree in the midst of the earth, and it grew and become strong, and height was reaching to heaven, and the width to all ends of the earth. The leaves and the fruit were much to shade and feed everyone. The animals sat in the shade under it, and the birds were in the branches. Then my nightmare changed. A watcher from heaven came down, a holy one, and the Holy One cried, 'Cut down the tree and its branches, shake the leaves, scatter the fruit, remove the animals from under it, and remove the birds off the branches. But leave the stump of its root in the earth.'" Now that's important, so watch that. Okay? "With a band of iron and brass in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the animals on the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from being a man, and let an animal's heart be given him for 7 years. Then King Nebuchadnezzar continued. The nightmare said, "This decree is by the watchers, and the demand by the word of the Holy One, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom, and he gives to whomever he will rule over base men." Base men are just men who don't want to do what God asks them. So the king told Daniel, "Tell me the interpretation of the dream." So the king knew of the dream, but he didn't know what it meant. And that's oftentimes what happens with Christians. The Christians might know what things mean in the Bible because it's been opened up to them, but other people don't. So that's why it's important to have a holy interpretation of what is said. Okay, so the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers all came in before me, but could not interpret. Daniel was surprised and astonished for 1 hour. So he just stood there for 1 hour, kind of like he was frozen in time. You get that way when you're a little bit scared. And maybe he was scared to tell the king what he was going to have to tell him. But it was 1 hour, and then, but the king coaxed him and told him to continue. So Daniel told him it was a dream about his enemies. Daniel started by telling him that the trees with the branches was tall, reached to heaven, to the ends of the earth, had birds in the branches, gave fruit to all, and leaves that gave shade, was the king himself. The king had become strong, and the king's dominion had reached to the ends of the earth. The interpretation of the watcher is this, O king: you will be cut down, and you will be made to dwell in the field and eat grass as an ox. It will last for 7 years, and until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom. The watchers left the roots, O king, so when after 7 years you acknowledge that the heavens do rule, then you will be restored. Daniel gave some advice before he left. Stop thy sins by becoming righteous, and stop your iniquities by having mercy to the poor, as it may make you more humble. But this is what happened to King Nebuchadnezzar. Now, it was quite a while before all this dream came to pass. So 12 months later, as he was walking through his palace, and he spoke, "Is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by my might of my power, and by my might of my majesty?" So you hear that my, I. Well, this was what his heart was like. As the words were coming out of the king's mouth, there came a voice from heaven saying, "O king, to you it is spoken, the kingdom has been taken from you. The dream will come to pass in the same hour." Just a little trivia here. There's a disease called boanthropy, and boanthropy is a psychological disorder in which sufferers believe he or she is a cow or an ox. I believe that the Most High God put this upon Nebuchadnezzar because he would not humble himself. This is what he came to look like. His body was wet with dew, his hair was grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. You may think that the Most High God was mean, but he eventually restored the Babylon's kingdom to him. Remember, in his dream, there was a root still in the earth. And that's just like our God. Sometimes we think we've lost him, but he has that root still for us if we want to get in touch back with him. After 7 years, the king lifted up his eyes to heaven, and his understanding returned, and he blessed the Most High, and he praised and honored him. All his important men were returned to him, his kingdom was returned, and his body was restored to his previous state. However, this time, his praise to God was genuine and not just words, as in the first video when he had his first dream. He meant it, and he did not praise himself. He had learned a great lesson, and they thanked God for it all. Sometimes it takes difficult situations for us to appreciate God and not be absorbed in ourselves.